We're going to tie a Mysis shrimp. But I've got the hook that I'm using is a Tiemco 2457 in the size 18. I'll tie this down 18, but I'll make it much larger than that. I'll also put it on a hook, a much larger hook, say up to about a 14. What I'll do is just adjust the size of materials. What I'm doing is going to first build the abdomen section, and this is clear tubing in a small. And what I'm doing is I've taken some coq de lion fibers, a bundle, and I'm going to put them in a stacker, trim off the butt ends, put them in a stacker, and match up the tips. Then I'll wet the tips, or the coq de lion fibers, and then thread it into the tubing. And that becomes, and then crimp with a pair of heated hemostats to get the ribbing effect or segmentation effect. See, it comes to a really nice point, and that allows me to insert it into the tubing. What's nice about this coq de lion is it's got a little dark spots into it, so that looks like it actually has an intestinal tract. I've inserted it into the tubing, only just a little bit out at the end. Now I'm going to take a pair of hemostats that have got teeth on them, use my little alcohol burner, heat up that hemostat, and then crimp that abdomen section to get the segmentation. Got do a little try and error. First couple times I burned something, and I also don't heat it up enough. I don't heat it if it doesn't leave enough of an impression on the tubing. Just reheat the hemostats because it worked just fine. And I see I'm gonna get that little tag in. Now I'm going to take another pair of hemostats that are flat, that have got no teeth on them, heat them up, and crimp just the back end of it, and it'll flatten out and look more like a paddle. Right now I'm just pulling those fibers out just a little bit more with those hemostats. You can do this with a lighter, but the alcohol burner just makes it more convenient. And just crimp that in and it'll flatten out. It actually melts to the back side of it. Didn't get it the first time. Better to underdo it than overdo it. There we go. I'm going to set that aside for a bit. The thread I'm using is Uni 17-aught Trico in white, because it only comes in white. I like this because it goes translucent when it gets wet, and also when you put something like super glue or anything else on it, UV resin. Now I'm creating a little bump right behind the eye. 2457 has a down eye, and I'm creating that bump so it'll lift my antenna off of lift and separate my antenna off of the hook. Now what I have here is boar bristle, because it comes to a nice fine taper. And it's got just a little bit of a cast, a yellowish cast to it. You get some of this boar bristle, it naturally splits, so it really creates a really good looking antenna. I'm tying it on right behind that bump so it'll lift. You can see that it's lifting and separating those fibers. I'm going to bring it back to the bend of the hook, trim and tie it off. Now I'm grabbing a piece of 17-pound mono to make my eyes. And the length I cut, is about a ½ inch or so. And I hold it in a pair of tweezers. And then I'll just run a lighter through it at the tip of the flame because it pulls off some of the soot. Then I don't have to use a marker or anything on there. And see, I'll just run it through the flame and I'll burn both sides. You know, a lot of guys do one side and then the other side and they're uneven. Well, I just flick the whole thing through there and it comes out even and black from the soot. And I'll use the tweezers to apply to my hook as I tie it down. Now I'm tying in right where I tied in the boar bristle or the antenna. I'll just figure 8 it on. I want it to sit on top. You're actually building the fly upside down. Now I'm taking that abdomen section that I built earlier, and I'm going to tie it in at the bend of the hook. I'm trimming off the extra cochleon, and I'm trimming off that excess fiber at the butt end. I'm going to tie it in just by the tip for the butt end of it. Now, I've got about 50 to 60 fluorocarbon floral fiber. And it's in a bundle, and at one end I've UV not sensed it so I won't lose any of it. But I like these legs to go out the length of the antenna so that it actually becomes the leg bundle as well as enhances the antenna. I'll tie that off and trim it. Now these are pretty thick bundles, so I'll use a cuticle cutter. Don't tell my wife. They're her cutters. I find the purple to be especially fetching. I'm just tying down that little tag in. Basically, the fly's tied. We're just going to do some enhancing to it. I'm going to take a drop of UV not sense and put it right underneath that bundle. One, to hold the fibers in place. And I'm also coating the eyes at the same time. I'm going to take that floral fiber bundle and press it into that dot of UV resonator, UV not sense. Hit it with my laser and cure. Now I'm taking another little drop to create the, I guess we would call it thorax area of the Mysis shrimp. And I'm going to put a big drop there, and then I'm going to taper it into the abdomen section. And then I'm going to lift the abdomen section so I get a curve there. See how I tapered it down? Not quite enough UV resin. Nice little goober, taper it down into the abdomen section. Now I'm going to need that tapering section to smear into there because that's what's going to lift that, keep that abdomen section in place. Hit it with my laser. Now you notice how it stays in place. Now there's nothing in nature is straight, so I'm going to create an S curve. Here I'm applying my little hot spot. Now I'll use marker here, but I'll also use flashaboo or tinsel in red. And if you ever see Mysis shrimp, you'll see they've got that little bit of red veining in there. That's what that represents, or orange veining. I'm going to coat it, seal it in. Now I'm going to take my UV resin again, and you know how I've got that segmentation in there created by the heated hemostats? I'm going to smear a bit of UV resin on there. And then I'm going to bend it into the shape that I want it to hold, and then hit it with my laser. See that bend? Because that UV resin is in there and that segmentation's in there, it'll hold its curve. Now I want to put just a little bit of a curve at the tail end of this baby. So I'll do the same trick on the opposite side. Put a drop of UV nonsense, smear it just a bit, bend it into the shape that I want. That's the smear. And I just bend it a little bit and then hit it with my laser. And I get that beautiful S curve. Now I'm just trimming off at an angle the legs. I'll let that go all the way back. Now I like to leave a little bit so actually the legs become the antenna and the leg section, or enhances the antenna section. Basically the fly's done. I'm just cleaning up some miscellaneous fibers. Thank you.